This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Pulis.
And today is episode 33, and we know we didn't really give you what we were talking about last week, but we figured it out. We are doing something a little bit different this week, something we haven't done before. We are covering ECW this week, ECW Heatwave 1999.
This was, Tim and I, when we mentioned it last week, we hadn't quite decided what we wanted to do, because we wanted to kind of look, and we try not to cover the ones that, that Conrad's doing, because that would be pointless. But this show was on the top 5 best ECW pay-per-views of all time list. So I suggested it to Tim. Tim agreed, and him and I both really never saw these. We saw clips and stuff. We never saw these shows live because both of our parents didn't exactly want us watching this stuff, because it was out there. So it was interesting to go back and watch something. And I will say, before we even get going, it was a really good show. They didn't disappoint. Whoever made that list up, it didn't disappoint.
No, I agree. I was pleasantly surprised by this show. Like you said, I wasn't allowed to watch ECW when I was a kid growing up, so this is obviously the first time I was really exposed to an ECW pay-per-view. And like you said, I thought it was an excellent show as well.
Well, let's get going into it then.
All right, so we got 1 dark match and 7 regular matches. The dark match was Vito getting a win over Simon Diamond. We talked about Vito last week at Bash at the Beach 2000 and his awful hardcore match with Norman Smiley and Ralphus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here he's showing up in ECW getting a win over Simon Diamond in the dark match.
And Simon Diamond is Pat Kenny, who is a longtime agent for Impact, for TNA Impact Wrestling, if people aren't sure of the name. You've probably seen him come out to break fights up. You know the face if you saw him, if you weren't sure who he is. But yeah, it's Pat Kenny, who is Simon Diamond.
We kick off the actual show with the tag team match. You have Chris Chetti and Nova getting a win over Danny Doring and Roadkill with Angelica, who you may know as Lita.
And Nova, who you might know as Simon Dean.
Yep, as Simon Dean, yep.
Yeah.
And Chris Chetti is Taz's cousin.
Yes, yep.
This match went about 7 minutes. I thought it was a good opener. I thought it was solid wrestling here. I wasn't sure what to expect as an ECW show, but I was actually pleasantly surprised by this tag match. I thought it was a good opener. The only thing that bothered me a little bit with this one is it was kind of hard to tell who the heels and faces were, because they were both acting kind of really heelish. So that was the only thing that I picked up on that I wasn't crazy about in this one. Yeah,
there was a spot where Danny Doring asked Angelica to marry him. Didn't have a ring, and they put a condom on her finger.
Yes. And there was some not so pleasant chants from the crowd, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, the ECW has always been known for their outspoken crowds, and they didn't disappoint, put it that way.
Yeah. Next up, you have Jazz getting a win over Jason Knight in about 6.5 minutes. Not sure if you can get away with this type of a match today with a female going against a male. I actually thought this was pretty good. I thought Jazz more than held her own in this match. And the only thing I kept thinking about with Jason Knight is, man, does he look like Buff Bagwell to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This match surprised me. This Jazz looked really good in this match. And I'm not saying looks-wise. I mean wrestling-wise. I'm not saying she's ugly either. I'm just saying, like, wrestling-wise, she held up her end. She was probably the better wrestler in the match. Not that Jason Knight was bad by any means, but yeah, Jazz. This was a great match. I saw it on the sheet, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna suck. Intergender. No, this match was great actually, and that's one thing I will say is that every match on this card didn't disappoint. There was no, like, usually when we watch a show, there's at least 1 or 2 where, like, yeah, it was, but everything, maybe because this was kind of fresh and new too, so that helped, even though it's 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a good match. I was surprised, and so the storyline here, to get into it a little bit, was that they both were involved with the Impact players, who we'll talk about later on in the night, and they were kind of not letting Jazz have her just due. She was helping them win matches. They weren't recognizing her, and this is how this match came about. And it was like I said, it was a great match.
And next up with another great match, in my opinion, you have Super Crazy getting a win over Little Guido. You may know him as Nunzio in his WWE days, in about 12.5 minutes. Again, another solid match between two great workers here. Little Guido was accompanied by Sally Graziano, and Big Sal got involved a bunch of times in the match. But I thought these put on a really entertaining match here.
Yeah, because he's super and he's crazy.
Yes.
The Loco Luchador, super crazy. He, there was, to me, the one thing that stood out too when Nunzio, Little Guido, took his shirt off, holy shit, was he ripped. Mm-hmm. Good God. And when he was in WWF, I don't really think I remember him being that type of, that type of body. But holy crap. He took his shirt off. I was like, wow, he looked like Finn Balor.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, this guy's ripped. And, it was a great match. I'm a fan of Super Crazy anyways. Some of the stuff he did in WWE, even the comedic stuff that he did too, was really good. But he could wrestle. That was the thing. Like, that's the thing about this whole show is that, it might be some extreme stuff here and there, but everybody that we've seen so far and will see could all wrestle. They could all put on a good wrestling match.
Yeah, and I will say so far, I just had this picture of ECW being this gory kind of promotion, but these first couple matches, there wasn't a whole lot of that. I mean, there was some brawling and stuff like that, but it wasn't like this over-the-top, like, gore, hardcore stuff that I was kind of expecting going into the show.
Yeah, it wasn't, there was a few chair spots here and there early, and, the interference stuff, like the Jazz match had a couple of chair spots where she jumped on his junk, essentially.
Yep.
With chair. But, it wasn't like you said, over the top. But, it's hard to find a weak match in this card. So.
Next up is a tag team match for the ECW World Tag Team titles. You have Spike Dudley and Balls Mahoney getting a win over the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Devon.
Balls. Sorry. I'm caught up in the chants. Anyways.
Before we get into this match, it felt like there was like a half-hour promo before the match began with the Dudley Boys, and I don't think I can repeat a single word of that promo in this podcast at all.
Yeah, the beginning of it was probably the cleanest thing that you could say, because Devon tells everybody to sit down and shut the F up.
Yeah.
And then Bully Bubba Ray says, something along the lines of, this is the worst goddamn city I've been in or whatever. And then it gets way worse from there.
Yeah.
Some people in the crowd get singled out and get called some awful names. One lady and her daughter got caught up in something that again, you can't repeat it. It's bad.
Yeah, so, it was really bad. Does not age well.
No, it does not. And it wasn't a bad pay-per-view, obviously, but this promo, holy goodness. And it's funny because Tim watched this a day before I did, and he sent me a message. He didn't really spoil it, but he was like, the promo they cut, you couldn't say any of it now.
Yeah.
And he's right, 100%. There's no way to say any of that nowadays.
No, not at all. I thought the match was pretty entertaining. It wasn't much of a wrestling match. It was a street fight. It was a brawl. There's some bloodshed in this with the cheese grater and everything like that. The Dudley Boys pretty dominated the majority of it, but Spike and Balls were able to get a roll-up victory to become the World Tag Team titles. There's some shenanigans after the match where they try to put them both through a flaming table, but it looked like the one that Bubba Ray was doing didn't really light up that well.
Yeah, it was. This was definitely the goriest part of the show.
Yes,
but it was still entertaining. It was good. Like you said, there were some high spots. There was some cheese grater stuff. It was. This is what I thought of when I thought of ECW. In my head, I was like, man, every match is like this.
Yeah, me too.
So, but again, it didn't disappoint at all.
No. Next up, we have Francine getting a win over Steve Corino in a pretty quick fashion here. Tommy Dreamer comes out. He's saying how he's injured and can't take part of the new ECW. Steve Corino interrupts him, and Francine attacks him, gives a tornado DDT, and gets the quick win.
Yeah, it wasn't even technically a sanctioned match if you look at the card. It was an NA, but Tommy Dreamer had some back issues. They said he had two herniated discs in his back, and they essentially said that his career was over, which we all know now. He's still wrestling now, so clearly his career wasn't over. Mm-hmm. But he, must have been some bit of uncertainty anyways. And it was a neat little spot because it actually led to the next match because afterwards they would attack Dreamer and Taz would come out for the save. Tajiri came out to help them attack Dreamer, and it kind of led to the next match. So it was a kind of cool segment. It wasn't just dead space. It actually had some meaning. So it was kind of neat. Yeah,
so Tajiri had Dreamer in the tarantula, and he held him there until Taz came out to make the save, and that led into the next match, which was Taz and Tajiri for the ECW World Heavyweight title. Taz is the champion here. He'll get the win in just over 10 minutes. I thought it was pretty interesting that Taz went to grab some like fencing or like from the staging area and try to wrap it around Tajiri, and Joey Styles keeps saying like pan up because it was too gruesome to show, which I thought was kind of weird for ECW to like that something was too violent to show.
Yeah, he was worried they were going to get kicked off a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to get thrown off pay-per-view because of this guy. And it was, you couldn't even really tell what happened, and they actually had to explain it because we didn't know what happened at the end either, but I guess Tajiri submitted while Taz had him choked out, essentially.
Yeah, he had like the fence, the Taz mission, but with the fence like wrapped around Tajiri, I think, is what happened.
Yeah, like I said, they didn't show it, but yeah, they had to explain it afterwards because they had Taz as the winner, and everybody was probably confused why he was the winner, but they said that Tajiri tapped out, so...
Yeah, so it was a little confusing there, but I thought the match itself wasn't bad at all. Yeah, the ending, was a little confusing, so that maybe took away a little bit from the match. But Taz and Tajiri, two really talented workers, and so yeah, I thought it was a decent match.
I think it's a shame that Taz didn't get to do more in the WWF. When he came over, he ended up, he broke in and had a great debut against Kurt Angle. And then, after that, his injuries caught up with him, his neck injuries and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a shame we didn't get to see more of Taz in the WWE because I think Taz is more than capable of having a great match with anybody. So,
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he definitely didn't get the run that he probably deserved in the WWE. But the bright side is we found out that he's a heck of a commentator. So he actually has a funny side to him too. So that was kind of a bright spot that you might not have known from ECW Taz.
Yep, exactly. You're totally right. That is one plus coming out of him having to retire early. Was that especially he's still doing it now. I mean, he did the Fight for the Fallen this past week for AEW because Tony Schiavone may or may not have COVID.
Yeah,
we were waiting his results for his COVID test. So.
And we have one more match to go. It's our main event. It is a tag team match. You have Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn getting a win over the Impact players, which are Lance Storm and Just Incredible with Dawn Marie. I thought this was a really good way to end the show. I thought it was a good tag team match. They went long, too, about 21 minutes here. Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn, the storyline here, they're not getting along. Jerry Lynn's calling himself the new effing show, which is kind of off of Rob Van Dam's tagline. And they kind of, played the typical, they're going to get along throughout the whole match. There was a spot where RVD goes for his 5-star frog splash, but he misses and lands on Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn is able to kick out of it. And then RVD hits the Van Daminator, and Jerry Lynn hits the Cradle Pile Driver for the win. But then all hell broke loose afterwards.
Yeah, so it was. You also had Sabu get involved at the end after the match was over, and they kind of played that up at the beginning of this pay-per-view. And I want to point that out too, that it was kind of neat how the beginning of the show started. It was just like little promos from everybody that was involved, talking about what they were going to do, which was kind of cool. It's kind of what Smackdown did this past Friday, ironically enough, starting it out with these little promos at the beginning, which was kind of a decent, different look. They weren't real long promos, so it didn't, bore you, but it was pretty good. But yeah, they played into that at the beginning that Sabu was upset with RVD, and there was dissension between RVD and Jerry Lynn. So they were, like you said, they were able to get along long enough to win the match. And then afterwards, they had a little bit of shenanigans there, and Sabu actually pushed RVD into Jerry Lynn, which kind of started like a three-way brawl.
Yeah, and there was a spot earlier in the match where RVD was going to do a move off the top rope. I forget if it was Lance Storm or Just Incredible, but Sabu comes in, steals his thunder, and does the move as well. So that they're playing up the tension between the three guys, RVD, Jerry Lynn, and Sabu. And
three of the biggest names in ECW history, too. It's not like they're nobodies.
No.
And it was interesting that this match closed the show in a little bit. It was still a good match. It was just interesting that the title match didn't close the show. Mm-hmm. But it was still, like, I don't know, hindsight being what it is, I don't think if they had done it the other way around, it might not have had as much meaning. Because, like I said, they were able to do that Dreamer thing right into the Taz match. So it worked out well. So whoever put this together, I assume Paul Heyman had something to do with it, obviously, but I don't know who was the guy that was, putting stuff in what order. I don't know what agents they had. I know Dreamer and Bubba Ray, they had something to do backstage in a capacity. I don't know if they did it this time or not, but I know they did off and on. So whoever put the format of the show together did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a really good show. I mean, I'm going to give this one a pretty high rating, probably about an 8, maybe to an 8.5. I thought it was excellent, especially, it wasn't what I expected. There wasn't as much gore as I thought there was going to be, like I mentioned earlier. But it didn't certainly take away from any of the matches. I thought the matches were really solid. So I'm going to give this one a pretty high rating, 8 to 8.5.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely in the 8 range if I had to give it something. And to be honest with you, I don't think there was, like I said, one match on the card that I would skip. If you were going to go back and watch this, you may as well just watch it right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick one match to watch out of this one.
or even one or two not to watch.
Oh, yeah.
That usually, like I said, every show we do, we have at least one or two. We're like, yeah, you don't need to see that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, for what it was, they were smart, too, because some of the lesser matches didn't go forever.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best part. Like, the Jazz match went under 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect timing. That's all you need. Get your spots in and get out. And, like I said, whoever formatted a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So that is our rundown of ECW Heatwave 1999. There's another WWE show coming your way tomorrow, the Horror Show at Extreme Rules. So we have a little bit of time left over, so we're going to run down and give you our predictions for that show.
Yeah, what would our podcast be without our usually somewhat close predictions? I can't think of any shows where we were just all flat out wrong.
No, I don't think so.
But for the most part, I think we both have pretty good records at predicting what's going to happen. We miss one or two because the WWE surprises us every now and again, but it's somewhat predictable, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess right now with the pandemic, it's nice to have something going, but the viewership has been declining. But I mean, rightfully so. If you listen to 83 Weeks, Eric Bischoff's been saying that from the get-go, that right now it's hard to sit down and watch when it seems like it doesn't necessarily matter as much as it used to, because there are no fans. I know they have performance center people, NXT type people, and then even AEW has some of their wrestlers in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely does take away from the show, and you don't really realize how much the crowd impacts the show. And just talking about ECW, the crowd was nuts for that show.
Oh, absolutely.
So right now I'm glad there is something, but yeah, it's been hard to watch. I know that you and I both kind of skip over the stuff now, and you talked with me before that you didn't even bother watching SmackDown yesterday because, again, it's hard to watch. Not that it's not entertaining. It's just, for X amount of years we've been watching it with crowds, and it makes it, that much more entertaining.
Yeah, it's definitely something missing without the crowd there. I mean, they're such an important part of the show, and without them, it definitely the show definitely lacks something. So it is, like you said, it is hard to watch. And
it's no offense to the entertainers. They're putting on some good. There's been some really good matches. It just feels like it's practice almost. It feels like it's like a dry run for the actual show.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate to the performers, but I'm glad that both companies are still trying to produce something that we can at least enjoy. And like I said, it's not all bad, but yeah, it's just hard to watch. It takes a lot of the emotion out of it when there's no fans there to add to it.
So let's get into it. Let's give you our predictions for Extreme Rules, or the Horror Show Extreme Rules, excuse me. 7 matches that are announced so far. We're going to run down now. We'll start with the tables match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. We have the New Day, Big E, and Kofi Kingston against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Cesaro getting a win on SmackDown yesterday for the right to name the stipulation, which he named as a tables match. Just because Cesaro got the win on SmackDown is why I'm going to go with the New Day here, because typically, if you get the win, the show before the pay-per-view, you're not winning on the pay-per-view. So I'm going to go with that logic here and pick the New Day to retain their titles here.
And if you remember right, that's what pissed me off about the Jeff Hardy Sheamus thing,
mm-hmm.
when I got it wrong. I should have thought of how that was going to go. And, they do switch it up from time to time, but I would like to see them go in a different direction, and I think that Cesaro might be the prototypical tag team wrestler now. I mean, he's been Tyson Kidd, the bar with Sheamus, and now he's with Shinsuke. Cesaro's a hell of a wrestler. It's too bad that he doesn't get more just due, probably because of the fact he isn't as charismatic as some of the rest of them. But yeah, I don't see the point in taking the titles off the New Day. Plus, Cesaro and Nakamura have had the New Day's number, so the New Day has to win at some point, I would think.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of setting it up for it to be a New Day win. However, I will say, you think back to the Sheamus and John Cena match, the tables match where Sheamus won the title for the first time. All it takes is one shove off a corner for someone to fall through a table and win, and kind of, this is the type of match where you can easily surprise people. I'll put it that way. I guess that's the best way to sum it up, because it's not a pin, it's not somebody just goes through the table and the match is over.
Yeah.
So New Day should retain.
Next up is the U.S. title match. We have Apollo Crews and MVP here. I'm going to go with Apollo Crews here just because I don't see them putting the belt on MVP. He was not a full-time wrestler at this point. The only thing, though, is I don't know if they're going to do something with Lashley getting involved in this match. That would be my only kind of hesitation in picking Apollo Crews here. But I'm still going to go with the champion to retain his title.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're setting up for maybe an Apollo Crews Lashley thing down the road by having Apollo Crews beat MVP, essentially. So that's my thought on that. I will say that we haven't discussed it. The new United States Championship belt looks a hell of a lot better than the Intercontinental Championship belt does. It's still not the prettiest thing in the world, but at least they have some color on it. So it's not like the Intercontinental Championship belt is just like somebody's belt buckle.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's just an oversized belt buckle, and it needs some color. At least the U.S. title, the new one, has some color, but it looks just like the world title and the Universal title and the women's. It's the same shape now as the other titles, which is the only unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
But I think they did better than I thought they were going to do with it, because I thought it was going to be an ugly belt, and it's not that bad. I think a little more color and a little different shape would have been good. And MVP has that right now as the uncrowned champion and whatnot. But yeah, I think Apollo Crews goes over in this match.
Next up is Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins in an eye for an eye match. The match can only be won when somebody takes an eye out of their opponent, and I am not making that up.
Do you think they're going to use like ice cream scoops to like scoop out someone's eye? You think that's how I don't know how they're going to do this.
I have no idea. This is so stupid to me, to be honest with you, because it's not realistic. Everybody knows that nobody's eye is getting extracted.
Well, even Murphy cut the promo on Seth Rollins, saying, he's like, you're not really going to pull his eye out, are you? Like, you're not, like, that's not what you're not going to blind the man.
Yeah.
So they're playing on how fake this really is. Like, you're not going to, you're not going to pull someone's eye out. I don't know how they're going to pull this off to make it somewhat believable. I think the match itself will probably be a good match, but yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know if they're going to have ice cream scoops and try to like scoop the eyeball out, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but if I had to pick a winner, I'm going to go with Seth Rollins for a couple of reasons here. He's kind of been on a losing streak lately, so I think he's due for a win. And I could see a turn happening with Dominic. Rey Mysterio is reportedly working without a contract, so this could be a way to write him off TV for a while. And I could see a turn by Dominic here, going against his father. I think if they did that, that would make for a more compelling storyline. So I'm going to go with Rollins here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that you can really only go one of two ways. If you're going to use Dominic in the future, especially with Rey being without a contract, you have to further this somehow. And how else can you, what better way to further it than have, Seth Rollins, who has followers, who has disciples, and have, Dominic turn into one of the disciples for Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
But I still don't. It should be interesting to see how they do the whole eye for an eye thing. Obviously it'll have to be some CGI stuff or something, that because they're not going to literally pull somebody's eye out. So that's not going to happen.
No.
But I think that it's too bad that they went this way with it. They could have, they used the Seth Rollins angle where he put his eye into the steps. That was smart. That worked out good. And they could have made this like a last man standing or a Hell in a Cell. There could have been something that was, a brutal type of stipulation to this without having this play on, stupidity. Because anybody that has half a brain is going to be like, well, you can't pull somebody's eye out. So I don't know where they're going to go with it. Should be interesting to see. I also am going to pick Seth Rollins only because, like you said, Rey Mysterio doesn't even have a contract. So.
Next up is the Wyatt swamp fight between Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. This is a non-title match, I believe. So it's going to be a Wyatt swamp fight. This match is already pre-recorded. I don't know about this one. I think this is going to be a cinematic match. I don't know. I'm kind of torn here. I'm going to pick, if I had to choose, which I do, I'm going to go with Bray Wyatt here. I think he needs a little bit of momentum against his feud with Strowman here, and it's not a traditional match, so I think he can get his revenge a little bit better this way. So I'll go with Wyatt here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if they're actually going to have a finish to this?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I'm going to pick Braun Strowman, so we're going to be different on this. And the only reason I'm doing that is I think they're leading to the Fiend coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And Braun Strowman kind of made mention of that on SmackDown this past week. Saying that that's his end game, that the Fiend, what the Fiend is all that Strowman has become. Like, they're intertwined. So he said something about how he wants the Fiend and all this stuff. So I think that the only way to progress this would be to pay it off with Braun Strowman's beat Bray Wyatt. He's beat, the cult leader now, Bray Wyatt, the one, the swamp, the guy that discovered him. Hopefully that's the way they're going to, go with it. I don't know. Like I said, there may not even be an actual finish to this match, but I'm just going to go with Strowman. Like you said, I don't think the title's on the line. It'd be nice if they cleared that up a little bit better than what they've been doing, but I agree with you. I don't think it is. But they never really have said it either. So yeah, I think that Strowman's going to win only because I think this is going to lead to the Fiend coming back for probably SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my guess there, and I think that's the whole reason why they had Miz and Morrison face him last month was to kind of break this up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that now that they've brought back the cult leader Bray Wyatt, I think that Braun Strowman can now say I've beaten the Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt, I've beaten the cult leader Bray Wyatt, and now I'm going to beat the Fiend.
No, actually, that makes sense.
And the Fiend can come back for revenge, saying that you can't beat me. You've beaten these guys, but you've never beaten me.
Yeah.
Or him, Bray, the other Bray Wyatt, Mr. Rogers Bray Wyatt will come back and say, well, you've never beaten him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's my thought on that. I'm going to go with Strowman. Like I said, there may not even be a finish to this match. We don't know what the hell's going to be. Just like the eye for an eye match. We don't know how this is going to go. Both this match and that last match we just discussed aren't going to be traditional matches by any means.
No.
So, but yeah, I'm going to go with Braun just because I think it furthers that storyline.
Next up is the SmackDown Women's Title match between Bayley, the champion, and Nikki Cross here. I think this is going to be actually a pretty good match here. I think this one could steal the show. I think Nikki is pretty underrated for what she can do in the ring, and Bayley is on the top of her game right now. But I don't see a title switch here. I don't see them giving Nikki Cross the belt. Bayley's got a long reign as champion going, and I think it's going to continue here.
Yeah, I mean, she's had 2 reigns as SmackDown Women's Champion. It's over 400 days.
Mm-hmm.
2 reigns. So when she gets it, she doesn't give it up very easily. It's tough because they've had Nikki Cross lose the last 2 weeks on SmackDown.
Yeah.
So it's tough for me to. They're almost setting it up for the comeback story of the underdog winning the match. But I think the only way, and I don't know what order they're going to do these matches in, but I think the only way that you see Nikki Cross win is if Sasha does beat Asuka.
Yeah.
I feel like they don't want them to have all 4 belts, but I feel like it would be something if Asuka does lose to Sasha, and then Bayley loses her belt, that would then maybe, because sooner or later Bayley and Sasha fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they're going with it, but yeah, I think if I'm a betting man, I'm going to have to say that Bayley's going to retain. But like I said, it doesn't make me feel good knowing that they've set Bayley up as the strong person the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make me feel real good about it. But I don't see them putting the title on Nikki Cross. I don't think she's the championship type of material for what they, for the WWE. I'm not saying she's not good. I just think WWE has their their own look that they try to have for a champion, and she doesn't necessarily fit it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with you on this one. I think Bayley has to retain. And like I said, if they have the matches in a different order and Sasha actually does beat Asuka, things could get interesting.
Yeah, and that's our next match is Asuka and Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's title. This one, I was kind of thinking that they might want to have them have all 4 belts, the SmackDown, Raw Women's titles, and the tag team belts. I could see them doing that in the storyline, and then maybe eventually have Bayley and Sasha for a winner-take-all match. I'm going to go here, and I'm not too confident in this, but I'm going to go with Sasha Banks here to become the new champion.
Yeah, it's tough because they already are on all 3 shows almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess it would make sense if you put the title on them being that they're already on the show. But I just feel like that puts so much spotlight on just 2 wrestlers
That's
to
true.
do 7 hours of TV, counting NXT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, it would be a neat story if they both had 2 belts and that. But for some reason, I'm going to go with Asuka. I don't. Like I said, it depends on what order they do this. It would make sense to me to have dissension between Bayley and Sasha if Sasha comes out with 2 belts and Bayley doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It would kind of really be jealous of Sasha in a way and kind of, maybe dissension. But, yeah, I think, I'm kind of skating around it because I don't really know. But, yeah, I'm gonna go with Asuka retaining. She hasn't had the title very long, so I don't think they're going to quite take it off her just yet. Maybe that's what they're building towards with Shayna Baszler coming back, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm going to go with Asuka.
And the last match is, well, we don't know the stipulation, but it's for the WWE Championship. It's Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler has the right to name the stipulation, and they've been drawing this out where we don't know. It's going to be announced the day of the show. So we're not sure exactly what title match it's going to be, which kind of makes it a little tough to predict it. But I don't see them putting the belt on Ziggler here. I mean, Ziggler is a top level talent, but I don't know if he's a guy to carry the company with the title. This stage in his career. So I'm going to go with McIntyre to retain here.
Well, and I feel like they're only doing this because Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, his tag team partner, they were traded for AJ Styles, both Ziggler and Roode.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's in Canada, he's having trouble getting to the tapings, allegedly. I'm not sure how true that is, but originally that's what was going on. So I feel like, why would you put the single title on Ziggler when you have plans for him and Roode as tag team going forward? I don't know. It's again, they've been building Drew McIntyre up, and I don't see Dolph Ziggler as the name to beat Drew McIntyre, to put it that way. So I think McIntyre retains also, and I don't understand. I don't see it. Depending on the stipulation, I guess Ziggler could win, but it would have to be one hell of a stipulation.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be. But yeah, I think Drew McIntyre is going to hold on to the title. I think this is kind of like when they had Miz and Morrison face Strowman. I think it's kind of a filler where they can still have a good match, but I don't see the title going anywhere.
Yeah, it kind of does seem like filler to me as well. So I agree with you. I don't think it's going to change hands.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Ziggler picks a ladder match.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, that wouldn't surprise me. I don't know what other stipulation he would pick. I mean, that makes sense. A ladder match does because he's been in Money in the Banks and stuff like that, and he's kind of like, a lot of people compare him to Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels had, pretty much started the whole ladder match thing with Scott Hall, with Razor Ramon, and stuff like that. So, but what stipulation do you think he could pick, Tim? Like I said, I think ladder match is the only thing I can see him picking.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be something where Drew McIntyre's at a disadvantage with the rules.
Maybe an Extreme Rules match where, where Roode can get involved if he can show up, or if Ziggler can use, weapon.
Or maybe like
to even the score, maybe? I don't know.
Or maybe something where the Claymore kick is banned or something like that. I don't know.
I just don't. I don't know necessarily. There's no match that like screams, "Oh, this will make Ziggler win."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the thing that. So it should be interesting. Like I said, I don't know what they're going to pick, and they're purposely. I like the storyline of him not giving it away. That's kind of neat. Because usually they give it away. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was an Extreme Rules match or if it was a ladder match, because there's no Extreme Rules matches on this card.
That's true.
So that wouldn't surprise me either. But yeah, I think those two might be the two matches that that I think make the most sense. A ladder match makes a lot of sense, and an Extreme Rules match makes a lot of sense.
So we'll see what goes down with Extreme Rules. That comes your way tomorrow night. So hopefully, we did pretty good on our predictions. We'll recap them for you next week.
Maybe a TLC match too.
Maybe.
Yes. Like I said, I'm still pondering the ideas. Not to cut you off, but I mean, other than that, I can't think of anything else that makes any sense. So.
We'll have to wait and see what the stipulation is. We'll recap our predictions for you next week. Also next week, I'm pretty excited about this. We're gonna break down the WWE Invasion Pay-per-View from 2001. This was right after WCW and ECW folded, and they had that whole Invasion storyline with the Alliance coming in to dethrone the WWF at the time. So I'm looking forward to breaking down that pay-per-view. I think we'll have a pretty good show out of that one.
Yeah, hopefully Conrad doesn't steal that one from us.
I think he's already done it before, so I don't think he's going to do it again.
But it seems like every time we announce it, we're like, oh shit, Conrad stole it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully we can cover that for you. And then not to spoil anything, but the first week in August is the #1 rated ECW pay-per-view of all time. So I think Tim and I haven't discussed it all the way yet. We've brought it up, but I think we might be going there. So if you guys dug this pay-per-view, I know we did. Hopefully we can do that again for you. I think it's August 2nd is the pay-per-view off the top of my head without looking. Mm-hmm. But it's the #1 rated pay-per-view for ECW in their history. So I'm looking forward to that, especially how cool this show was. I think that'd be a great show to cover.
Absolutely. No, I'm definitely looking forward to covering some more ECW stuff because this one definitely didn't disappoint. And we hope we didn't disappoint you guys.
Well, like you said, it's new to us, too. Like you said, it's one of those things where it's new to us, so it makes us want to watch it that much more.
Absolutely. All right, that's coming up for you next week. We'll run through Extreme Rules, and we'll give you the WWF Invasion Pay-Per-View. Everybody, enjoy your week. Be safe, stay safe, and we will talk again next week, Saturday at 5. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Pulis.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.